It's Ion Franchising, the podcast where I get to talk to founders and amazing franchisees, top executives. Today on the Franchise Envy series, I have Ryan Colburn. He's a superstar at a franchise called Cabinet IQ. He signed about a year and a half ago. He's got 3 territories between South Carolina and Georgia. This guy is a superstar. And let me tell you a secret. For those of you wondering, can I keep my job and be a franchisee? The answer is yes. But a lot of that depends on you, and we're going to hear how Ryan's doing that right now.
Up next,
It's discipline, it's time management, and it's grit. You're right.
Yeah, you did hit on some really good stuff, Ryan, because you're not just a number to the franchisor when you're one of the early franchisees.
And I do think that is a much needed part of this. That's part of the recipe is having that support from your loved ones.
Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you, Lance. Happy to be here.
I am super happy to have you, my friend. You know, you and I met at a special event with Cabinet IQ through their broker Franchise Fastlane not too long ago, earlier this year in Charleston, and I could tell by your energy. I can always tell the energy of someone that's a successful franchisee because I really think that grit and hard work is such the contributing factors to somebody's success, which we're going to hear. Let's kick it off with that. Is that the number one ingredient when you get into a franchise? Is that at least you're going to work hard?
Honestly, yeah, it's what you're willing to put into it. Yeah, absolutely. It's takes a lot of hours. Takes a lot of focused hours. Um, Anybody can sit there and pretend like they're working 4 hours and call it a 16-hour workday, but how much did you actually get accomplished within that? So yeah, it's discipline, it's time management, and it's grit. You're right.
But you knew this going into it because you planned on keeping your job. You're certainly young enough, and I don't care whether somebody's 30 or 60. If you have a goal, especially to support your family in a better way, you know, you can get there. You just have to make that sacrifice. But there's a lot of people not willing to make that sacrifice. So, was your fiance on board, really knowing, hey, this is what it's going to take. You're not going to see me as much.
You know, she's always been very supportive. I'm not sure what she knew she was signing up for. That's so I did have, a conversation with her right before we signed and kind of level set with her about really what to expect. And I think that was much needed. I'm sure she wishes I could spend some more time at home. I'm spending a lot of time in the car, just out there because uh, I live a little bit away from my active territory right now. I'm still building within my home territories, so yeah, it was a big sacrifice for her, but she's been incredibly supportive, and I do think that is a much needed part of this. That's part of the recipe
Yeah.
is having that support from your loved ones.
So, teaser, Ryan's got some outstanding goals for his first official year in business. We're going to talk about those numbers in a moment. We're also going to talk about why you pick Cabinet IQ. But first, I have to ask, you come from a banking and finance background, so you have no experience in the cabinet or the countertop remodeling world. And so what was the single scariest moment about getting into a Cabinet IQ franchise, let alone buying 3 territories?
The single scariest moment, I mean, I think for about everyone, it's going to be when you sign on that dotted line, both on, your franchise agreements, and, you know, we have a retail component, right? So signing that personal guarantee of a lease. And, when you total all these numbers up and, you're liable if something doesn't go wrong, or something goes wrong, your franchisor is, um, they can collect what they need, and you're personally guaranteed on a retail front, and whatever else you need to start the business. So whether that be Equipment, vehicles, with a new business, no one's going to not require a personal guarantee without 2 years of established business. So every time you sign that dotted line and you add to that personal guarantee, it you know it starts to add up, and you realize, hey, this better work, or I got some people that will start collecting. Yeah,
I'm laughing with you, not at you, because having been an entrepreneur and owning lots of franchises for years, financial doom. That was the scariest moment. We've all had it. Some people, it's interesting. Some people don't even think about that. They're like, it's like a person that goes hang gliding or jumps out of a plane with their parachute and is like, you know what? I'm not worried about dying. I'm worried about passing out. I'm worried about how I'm going to land. Everybody's a little different. So in your case, it was simply financial doom.
and
But
it's I think that way because I come from a risk background, right? So you said finance and banking specifically, it's risk. Um, so I'm never not going to consider the worst case scenario. That's how I, base a lot of
yeah,
decisions. Is the risk reward ratio there? Um, some people operate differently, like you said, more power to them. I cannot help myself by, you know, think of the worst case scenario. What is that, and can you live with it? And I bet you'd be surprised. You can live with it. Like worst case scenario here is bankruptcy. We are in
yeah.
this country. We're very we forgive bankruptcy. It is easy to recover. Takes a little time, takes a little work, but really, it's not the end of the world. You know, uh, so it's just confronting it head on, that worst case scenario, you're going to do yourself a lot of favors and just making sure you can live with it.
Because of what we just set up here, I have to roll into a different question I'm now going to ask. Was size a factor when you picked Cabinet IQ? Because there are larger brands that have been around a much longer time period that have a very low failure rate that I personally recommend regularly, and I do love Cabinet IQ. But you have to have a different mindset when you get into a smaller, newer brand.
100%. And it's all about that give and take, right? It's whatever you are giving up, you're taking something and vice versa. And in this scenario, getting into a newer brand, I was franchisee number 7, right? So obviously, there's a lot more risk associated with that. Nothing is proven outside really the mothership stores. They have proved a model, so that does work. But I didn't have any data of it working in other markets. That's on you, your due diligence to figure that out. But I did want to sign with a newer brand because I still wanted the flexibility to run my business and build it how I wanted. And you have a lot more flexibility in those newer brands. They are receptive to feedback. You're essentially a guinea pig. Those first 10, 15 people that sign on, you're a bit of a guinea pig. They will, a good franchisor is going to receive that feedback and implement it for future folks, but you are one of the trailblazers that, get to try different things. So it was a mix of being able to create my own business within a proven business model. So that's one of the reasons I was targeting newer brands. I didn't want to sign up for a job. I wanted some flexibility and to make my own decisions and build it the way I wanted to build it.
Yeah, you did hit on some really good stuff, Ryan, because you're not just a number to the franchisor when you're one of the early franchisees.
Right.
They want I mean, look, all great brands want all of their franchise owners to be super successful. But when you're new, the franchisor needs all franchisees to be really successful. And if not, you get extra help too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I told them when I was out there in Austin for training, one of the reasons I was looking for a newer brand was, they're in it with me, right? I'm not signing on dotted line, and it's gonna be hard to get a hold of them. They're gonna send me off on my way. That's not how it's gonna work. They're gonna work hand in hand with me. Just like I said, I have to be successful. Franchisee number 7, those first 10, 15 have to be successful for them to continue awarding new units. So yeah, that was a big part of the decision for sure.
So, coming up on your first year in business, it looks like could be 3 million that you do in year 1 with a net over 20%. So people listening are now well, if they didn't fall out of their chair hearing those numbers in the first year, I mean, you're a guy that wants to build what? $10 million business, $20 million business someday?
Uh, 50.
Okay, 50. Yeah, that's even better. And 3 million's a pretty damn good start, especially if you can net 600,000. And I assume you're going to continuously reinvest. You don't need all that money now. You're going to reinvest in marketing and team, showrooms. Talk a little bit about that strategy for you.
Yeah, it's all reinvestment. I'm really not taking in anything. That's why I have maintained my other job. That's what that's for. It just alleviates the risk of the business. Lets me live on that amount and continue to reinvest every dollar of profit here. So yeah, we are building out showroom number 2 right now. Should be open in the next couple months. I'm working on number 3 and number 4 simultaneously, Savannah and Jacksonville. And I will continue building at least one a year for the next 10, 12 years is my plan. Continue building out the team. I have 10 onshore and 4 offshore, so with me I have 15 people working in this organization just in one location, soon to be 2. And so I will continue building out that team. But yeah, I'm going to continue to reinvest as much as possible.
Yeah, so 3 million, goal being 50 million. It's a wonderful plan. Talk to the folks out there still sitting with a corporate job, scared to death, and maybe they're working too much at the corporate job. They have to quit their job because their job isn't as flexible as, let's say, yours is.
Mhm.
So, how do they, in their head, how do they balance that risk that they can do this?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but confront that worst case scenario. Like, what does that look like? What do my savings look like? Do I have a nest egg? What does your family situation look like? You can make different decisions if you have no kids versus 3 young kids. I'm sure that decision looks differently. But yeah, to maintain your existing job, don't get me wrong, it takes the perfect situation and it takes even more hours. It's you have to have a job that's flexible. If you have to be, you know, in meetings on your computer during business hours um, all day, it's going to be very challenging. That said, you can always, you can do it as you're ramping up. Once you sign on a franchise agreement, it's not like day one you're selling, right? There's a big training period. There's a lot of building that is required, and you can keep that job until hopefully you get some sales rolling in. It doesn't have to be I quit and then sign the franchise agreement the next day. You can blend something together. You can just write it out as long as you can. It's going to depend on each situation. Like I said, it takes a very unique role, unique situation, and it takes even more hours. But it is possible.
Yeah. So, why did you select Cabinet IQ, and how many other brands did you really look at? When what was really close? What was the close second to Cabinet IQ that almost was your brand?
Yeah, I'll give my guys a shout out. Pink's Windows. My guys, another Austin brand. Um, Brandon
I
Carter
just
over
had a
there.
conversation with them right before we got on the podcast.
Really, really.
Tim
Brandon,
Tim was calling me.
yeah.
Tim and Stephen Montgomery. It's a family business.
Yeah, they're great guys over there. I went and saw that. I actually did a when I went out for the Cabin IQ. It was a mix. I went out and did like the discovery day for both of them at the same time. So that was my close second. Um, yeah, great organization over there. They got some really good brands. That one painter, Banks Windows, a few others. They got some good stuff going on. What I chose Cabin IQ. A couple different reasons. So. Um, One, the leadership team, they were, I could tell they were ready to get in the weeds with me. Um, they were willing to put in the work. They're workaholics like myself. And I didn't, in the franchise space, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of charlatans around that are just selling units, and they're gonna, uh, sell to private equity at the earliest possible stage. I knew this was not the case here. That was a big part of the decision. Um, and the scalability of this business, um, and the ability to scale one territory was it's different from franchising. Instead of just buying 50, 60 units, you can build a really great business within a concentrated area. And also, the one that really was the kicker is I wanted to build an organization that was a career for people and not a job. I didn't want half my time to be spent on dealing with turnover and hiring high schoolers or, people that would just jump to their actual career when that time came. I wanted this to be a career. I wanted to work with professionals, and that was the kicker that really put a lot of other brands to the side. I talked to dozens and dozens of brands. And there's some good ones, there's some bad ones out there. But Cabinet IQ kind of checked all the boxes for me.
So, what is the secret weapon to Cabinet IQ? Is it the AI that they're taking advantage of, and or you're taking advantage of now, as far as design, the great looking showroom? Give us some elements for those out there that are looking at franchises. Why is Cabinet IQ so much better than other competitors?
Yeah, so for one, just separating, different franchise brands, there is a barrier to entry with cabinets and countertops. Not everybody can do it. It takes a ton of research and learning and actual just sitting down reading spec books. You have to learn cabinets, you have to learn countertops, you have to learn building, you have to learn kitchen design. All of those are, complete industries in their own right. You have to learn everything as the owner to oversee it. You need to know every nook and cranny of your business. You have to understand everything, make tough decisions. So it's a lot of learning involved, a big ramp up period. But that barrier to entry also, it's a positive because I knew I'd be willing to put in the work and learn everything I needed to. Not everybody is, right? You can't just pick up a shop and a table saw and just go start selling cabinets one day, unless you have, 20, 30 years of experience, right? It takes a it takes a skilled tradesman, or it takes a skilled business owner with experience to launch this business. So that's why it separates from other brands. Now, in terms of, what separates Cabinet IQ from, other cabinet shops, yeah, the tech is a big part of it, right? The tech advantage that we have, it's a sleepy industry. It's archaic in a sense.
Yep.
There's, you're really competing with either mom and pop shops or big box stores, and for different reasons, they have their faults, right? I don't think big box stores should really be selling kitchens. And the mom and pop shops, it's, when you talk about full custom cabinetry, a lot of times it's just some guy in his garage without air conditioning, building boxes. And so there are pros and cons to going either that direction, but we're that middle ground, that that much needed person in the middle that can provide stock semi full custom cabinets, uh, tailor a kitchen design to your specific needs, have that intimate boutique experience designing your kitchen, and we're we're turnkey service, right? We're design. We have full-time installers. So there's a lot of things that separate us from other cabinet shops in the area. But the tech, that's where it starts, right? There's not a lot of tech-forward companies in our industry. There's just not. So that is where it starts. But really, everything about the business is unique and is filling a need.
So you've been an excellent guest, my friend. Final thoughts. Let's say one piece of wisdom or advice for aspiring first time business owners like yourself to jump into a franchise, what is that advice? If there's one piece, something we didn't cover yet, what would that be?
Just bet on yourself, right? That's what it is at the end of the day. And like we've been saying, confront yourself with that worst case scenario. What does that look like? Can you stomach that? Um, because I promise the risk is worth the reward. If you do it right, you sign with the right brand. Do more due diligence than you think. Vet everything. Trust but verify every number, every person out there. But when you find the right brand, you think it works, do your research on your market specifically. I think that's where a lot of people, um, you know, don't do their full due diligence. They do it on the brand, they do it on everything, but they don't do it on their specific market. And there are certain industries, there are certain brands that will work in a market that will not work in another market. And I think that is an overlooked part of the due diligence process in the franchisee world that I would recommend people explore and look deeper into. But you find the right brand, it'll work in your market. Just go for it. Bet on yourself. You don't want to be sitting in the same office 30 years down the road and asking what if, right? That's the real worst case scenario. Is that what if question? Just do it.
Absolutely. Ryan Colburn, you were a wonderful guest. Thank you, my friend. And for those of you listening, yes, I am a franchise broker. I represent hundreds of brands, and I'm happy to help you for free. So, Ryan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lance.
My pleasure.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.